Hello and welcome to our cost engineering session. I promise that I'm going to keep this very practical. Our focus here is to help shed businesses, engineers, estimators to design and quote sheds in the best way possible. So I'm going to be pragmatic and we're going to start here jumping into Shedmate. We're going to get a real project. We're going to extract some information in Excel to understand what's the ABC curve. And then we're going to go back and I'm going to show some of the theory behind it so you can actually make that connection in a very good manner. So I'll just put myself on the corner here so we can get started. And this is a shed project that was designed and delivered through the Shedmate interface. So it's a real project that was built to a customer in Australia. And the reason I picked this one as an example is because it contains many different components. So we have roller doors, we have some sliding panels, some windows, some sliding panel, like glass sliding panel. We have some concreting. We do have on our pricing here a shed that includes erection, council fees, concrete. So please don't be too worried about the user interface here yet. As I mentioned, the main lesson here is on the Excel. I'm just using Shedmate for now, just so you can understand and extract the information that we're gonna go to explore in the ABC curve. So jump into another module of our Shedmate. For this specific shed that we have just seen there, we have here our itemized pricing. So we're going to learn this in the futures lessons, but we're talking here about the pricing calculation. So each of those items is as a specific calculation that combined will form the total price of the shed. So just imagine this as individual items that we quantify. For example, we have iron cladding. So Shedmate's going to show us what's being considered in that pricing. We have some top hats, 75 by 95. So you can see here each of those items. And if I sort by price total, I can see all of them and what's more, what makes the most of our shed. So I'm going to export this to Excel and we're going to go to Excel now. Okay, good. The reason why I exported this to Excel was just to create some additional columns here so we can understand this concept better. So the first column that I have created before after sorting these from largest to smallest on the price total was to just create one here called accumulated value. So what I'm doing here is I'm pretty much getting this item and summing with the the previous price. So next one, I'm getting this item and summing up with the previous price. So by doing this, we have an accumulated item that combined will be equals to the total value of that shed. Okay. Also on the side, I created an individual column. So this pretty much will be the price total for that specific item divided by the total price. And then I can see how much of the shed that price represents. And then I just created another one here just so you can have this different data to play with that I call the accumulated percentage. So it's the same as this one, but instead of the value, we accumulated the percentage here. So this one plus the other, and then by summing all of these, we're going to get to 100% of the shed price. Okay, so this should be enough for us to play with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide most of these elements here so we can focus on this data. And what this is telling us, if we just go through and explore this, I'm going to zoom this a little bit, maybe just remove this a little bit here on the top. Good. So this tells us that the estimated price we have for this specific shed, just the erection itself would be about 21% of that shed kit price. And if you put the concrete for a slab with concrete apron labors, and also we do have some concrete reinforcement mesh. So if we actually start accumulating that, we can see that the erection and the concrete will represent around 40, 50%. It depends on the shed price, but it's a very important, partial so far. And then we do have some important items such as trim deck iron cladding. We have maybe engineering fees. We do have some big openings such as the roller doors and some, windows that will represent a good percentage of the shed. So what's the ABC curve? Okay, we're going to go to the ABC curve, but I just want to, for you to see what I'm going to do here. So all of these items from here, they would be considered A items. So they are items that combined will represent 80% of my shed kit price. So look at this. When we're pricing sheds, we need to focus on what matters. And for this shed specifically that I'm using as an example, what matters is erection, concreting, iron cladding, structural frames, reinforcement mesh, engineering fees, roller door pricing, some big openings or sliding glass doors. And then we have those items that combined, I'm going to call them B. They're going to go from 80 to 95%. So we're going to go here all the way to 95%. And we're going to have the C items that combined will represent pretty much 5%. So you can see a pattern here. You can see that the A items, not many items, but they are very important. The B items, they are in the middle range there, but there's still less items than the C items. And the reason I'm bringing this up here is to show you that sometimes when we're setting up pricing, sometimes when we are defining our costs to start a business or to actually improve our existing systems, some people tend to focus a lot of the time on what doesn't matter. And this is very frequent and repeats with time. I have onboarded many companies and they always, some people always follow the same path. So they have they're very detailed about, hey, I need to set up this concrete labor travel, and they create these very complex formulas. And you can see here for this specific project that this would represent 0.03% for the shed. Or they might be, very worried about purling bolts, and that represents 0.05% of that shed. Or other formulas that works with P8 door studs or some rolled off freight prices. So you can see that all of these items here, if I just had put a markup of 5% to accommodate for that, that would generally be a right. So obviously we have companies and companies. We have a different spectrum of customers. If you're talking about companies who are just starting up, I would highly recommend focus on the AB items. If you're talking about more complex companies who are already operating for a long period of time that have implemented some cost engineering strategies in the past, all right, let's refine the C items so we can be competitive and we can actually have a good accuracy when sending those quotes out there. However, once again, if you're starting up, if you're just introduced to this new technology world of BIM design and cost estimating, focus on what matters. Okay, so this is, in other words, the ABC curve. So now let's jump, as I mentioned, to the theory to actually make that link even more powerful. So I'm going to leave this documentation available for you in this lesson here, but let's just go through this here. So what I have just demonstrated to you, exporting that data from Shedmate and creating that ABC curve, it's pretty much this. If you look at the graph, we have those items that they generate 20% and they represent 80% of your income or the price of the shed. And then I have those B items and I have the C items. The C is the larger amount. But if you focus on A and B, you are counting for 90% right. And then you can put a markup that's going to take care of the rest. So in basic words, the ABC curve is a strategic pricing and cost management tool that helps business prioritize focus areas based on their financial impact. For shared businesses, this method categorizes cost components into the A, B, and C groups based on their contribution to the total project cost. So when I focus here on the category A, okay, so the A items are the most critical components that dominate your shared pricing. So any small change here will have a significant effect on overall cost and profitability. So instead of being very worried about the formulas that are going to count for your fasteners or your bolts, maybe you could try to negotiate a better price for your roof cladding or for your roll former or for the company you're buying your material from, or concreting production or erection production, because this is gonna give you a much bigger impact in pricing, and at the outcome will be a better return on the investment of your time and energy in actually optimizing those areas. So some examples of what you need to worry about here: obviously erection and concrete, concreting components, wall girts, rafters, purlins, apex, bracing, knee bracing, wall bracing, columns. So this is actually wall bracing, not much, but these are the items that will have a bigger impact for you. And also wall and roof cladding, the larger opening components such as sliding panels if you're fabricating them or purchasing from a manufacturer, or roller doors or glass doors or sliding panels. And in insulation is a big one as well that can impact your pricing. Then negotiate aggressively with suppliers, optimize design efficiencies, and monitor market price closely. Category B. So these are the items that have less influence than A items. So we're talking here about the major brackets, main bracket components. So we have here apex connections. We have the bigger ones. If you think about turnbuckles, PA-based, PA door base plates, they actually go to the C generally. But we're talking about the small openings, personal access doors, permits and admin costs, gutters, ventilation systems, and general equipment. So this will generally be around B. And once again, this will vary from company to company depending on the project scope and the types of sheds you are actually, doing in your business. And also have the category C, that's the low impact. So we're talking about the screws, we're talking about fly bracing, they're very cheap. We're talking about framing screws, we're talking about small plates, those components that add little value. So it's important to quantify them, obviously, especially for bill of materials. However, in terms of that estimation for your customer, you can simplify it a lot. So talking about fasteners, the smaller plates and cleats, flashing, cover heat, sealants, and trim accessories. So you can go through, have a read on this document here. I'm not going through everything. I just wanted to show that those visuals. But the main lesson outcome here is understanding this ABC analysis or ABC curve will help you shape where you should put your focus on when you're dealing with pricing. You need to focus on what's actually important and leave the rest with a markup or standardized pricing. And I'm gonna give you another example here is when you're dealing with bracket sheds. So sometimes you can have hundreds of like maybe hundreds different bracket components because you have your apex bracket for, let's say, C150, but then you can have that bracket for 10 degrees, for 12 degrees, for 15 degrees, you name it. Obviously, each one of those items, they'll have a different pricing. And we've had customers who were setting up in Shedmate in the past, the price for each one of those brackets individually and trying to pick those depending on what frame we're actually using. So imagine the amount of formulas and effort you need to put into the system to make that happen. And the pricing variance when you're having a 10 or 12 degree bracket for a C150, an apex bracket, it's not much. So what you can do easily here is just, okay, from all of the different roof slopes you do, which one is the more expensive? Let's say it's $25 and the least expensive like $23. So does $2 will make a big difference? Probably not. So just stick with the standard. Just put the price of everything as 25, your most expensive one. And this is a good way to start that setup. If you want to evolve with time, if you have that energy, and if it makes sense for your business, yeah, go through it. But don't try to do that when you're just starting up because you can get so confused about the amount of information you have there. And in terms of shared components, we have a lot of information, a lot of variability. It's just a box, as many people say. However, there's a lot involved in making sure that that box with the multitude of variable components will have an accurate pricing at the end. So focus on the basics, focus on what matters most in terms of your price impact, and then the rest we can just simplify as much as we can to get a very good outcome. So this is it about the ABC curve. Let's learn more in the next session.